The time has come once again to speak as witches and wizards and neophytes do. That's right, two in a row. I'm Daniel Dubois,
And I'm Michaela Stone.
and we're your hosts for the Think Like a Wizard podcast. Welcome to season 3, episode 5, Adele Bernard. That's the title for
Hello.
this one. So I'm going to say something really quick before we jump in with Adele. So if anyone is listening to this and thinking they want to be a guest on here, one, I have one simple rule. Ask when the time is right. If you do not feel guided to be on this episode, and an episode, it's not time yet. This is very important. And I mention it because the reason Adele is on this episode is because the producers of the show could not be more specific about having her on. So I want people to know that if you're going to be on here, you're going to be on here. Producers will ask for you. They will make arrangements. So you don't have to worry about it. If we were talking at something and I didn't invite you yet, or there's technical difficulties, don't worry. It'll come when it needs to come. So that's giving you listeners a little bit of an understanding of Adele right off the bat, because she did come to be a guest on this episode because we met at on a Zoom call, and she messaged me saying, "Hey, let's talk." And I booked. She gave me a link for her booking, and I did it right away, even before the call was done. Like, it was just that you're doing that, you're getting a hold of her, you're talking to her. And then when we were talking, it was like, okay, you're booking her. Like, I do try to make it so I can run it by Michaela first, but there was no having it. It was just, you're doing it. This is what's happening, even before the end of the conversation. So this is going to be a very special episode. So now, I guess I'm going to ask you, Adele, to introduce yourself to the audience. Say whatever you'd like about yourself.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Daniel and Michaela for having me on the show. So basically, my company is Transition Clarity, and I'm a transition mentor. So I mentor people in changes in life, like whether it's getting married, changing jobs, moving houses, empty nesters, retirement, and even loss of loved ones or pets. And this is a born gift that I've had. I was aware of it since I was 3. And now, like you were saying about having me on the show, it's my time to be the way shower for the new world. So that has had its ups and downs, and like, I'm not doing this. And I've always been guided to stay the course. I'm looked after. Everything's working out in divine timing. Like the old joke, make a plan, God laughs. So I used to make plans, been laughed at too much, and now I just trust in the divine timing. And yeah, I don't know what you said when we met on the networking call. All I know is I had shivers down my spine to get a hold of you. And I went, okay. So I listened to the call just as you did. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm excited to where the conversation goes.
Yeah.
Those are some of the most fun meetings ever, of when you see someone and it's like, okay, this person, I have to talk to them, and I'm not sure why. One of my very good friends who is incredible with Akashic records, like, I can wax lyrical about her for a long time. We met, we just happened to be in the same container. It was virtual. She's in Lithuania. I'm in the US, so, wasn't going to be in person. But I just heard her talking, and I remember thinking, I have to get in touch with her. Like, this is really important. And we have spoken, I think, twice a week for the last 2 years. And there's always something coming up. There's always something important to get into that shifts something for one or other of us. And it's just one of those things where neither of us know quite what that was happening that put us in contact, but absolutely it was undeniable. So I love these kind of connections and I'm totally here for it.
That's awesome.
I was gonna ask you. So you said, what does it say? Way shower? Is that the word you used?
Well, I I use that term loosely, but
Hmm.
yet not so, because if you're aware of human design and the gene keys, um,
Michaela gave thumbs up there. She's all excited.
yeah, um, this is my time. I'm the 55, which we are in till 2020, 2044. And it's all about coming home to the freedom and the peace of who we are amongst all the outside world. And so when I say being the way shower, it's about using the strength and the power within to stand in your light and your knowing of who you are. And the audience doesn't know, but I base my whole company on a lighthouse. And the reason I picked the lighthouse is because whether you use the light that is provided in the analogy of like a boat coming up onto the
Hmm.
shore, right? The lighthouse is there. It's solid, it's standard, it's not moving. You're saying you're approaching the rocks. You can course correct. If the captain still or the individual still wants to go, you're wrong, I'm right. Well, here's the rocks. And so I'm saying I'm just going to be the light for you to come into your own inner gifts because we are all being asked to shine our light in this new age of Aquarius. And with the new age of Aquarius, we're only what, 5 days old, 6 days old,
Oh, yeah.
right? When you think about as humanity, we've never left one zodiac sign like the Piscean to the Aquarian. It wasn't just a song in the 60s.
Hmm.
Yet, if you listen to the lyrics, it was the exact star formation of where the planets were when we shifted on the 19th of November.
Okay. So I wasn't sure. I wasn't aware of that particular shift happening because
Yeah.
we're preparing for 2025. One of the
Right.
reasons why you're making an awesome guest because 2025. Well, I mean, the podcast is about showing people what it's like to be spiritual, and especially season two was starting to bring conversations out, and season three, the one this is recording for, is definitely about showing everyone what's out there, what you can
Okay.
see,
So
what the options are.
so let me just do a quick caveat then. I forgot
Okay.
that part. And we're not live. This is coming out in
Right.
February. So think about we're going to be like a new baby
Hmm.
that is now starting to figure out I have toes, I have fingers, I have arms, I can move,
Yeah.
but not a lot, right? And so it'll be fascinating when this episode gets put out to where we actually are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We'll be 2 months into 2025. So it'll be interesting to see because that's actually kind of my big curiosity too, because we're going to have a whole bunch of episodes done before 2025 hits. And it'll be interesting to see where we were correct and if our timing was good.
and this particular episode, if I have my timing right from what we discussed,
Mm-hmm.
will be 3 months into Aquarius.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Yeah,
Something like that.
because we the shift happened November 19th in North America,
Hmm.
right? And everyone in my circles were just like, wow, do you feel it? It's way lighter energy. It's way more loving and caring and compassionate.
Well, you know, I had characterized it as the divine feminine is on the rise. That is something I
Absolutely.
spoke about on when that call we were both on. That's one of the things I talked about, or I had shared it. Yeah, where it's time for the divine feminine. So yeah,
Which is all about the 55 if you know human design, which is the kindness,
yeah.
compassion, love.
So
And
there.
the and more importantly, the freedom in it, right?
Well, you know, that's it's interesting because I was asked about that when I was being interviewed on another podcast about when is it should you be yourself when it's not safe to be yourself? And part of my answer was it's the time. So the way is being made for you to be yourself.
Mhm.
And
My
actually,
immediate response to that was going to be that's exactly when you have to be yourself.
yeah.
But it is of course easier said than done, and I'm very keenly aware of that
Mm.
right now with global situations. It's not always safe to show your colors, as it were, but it's important to do that.
Well, but let's take it a different step.
Mm-hmm.
So, being yourself doesn't mean you need to share opinions
Oh,
or you have to jump into the conversation. By just being there doesn't mean the mouth has to open.
Yeah.
no, and sometimes it doesn't take saying anything at all. It just takes being who you are to set other people off.
Yes.
You can actually be completely silent and do that, I have discovered.
Well,
So, yeah.
Oh,
and
well,
and
yeah.
I have a funny um thing to say to that because people used to always want me to go shopping with them, and if you know me, I hate shopping malls. I hate them. But they go, "Will you please come? It won't be long." Fine. And I'm sitting on the bench waiting for them to try on their clothes. Someone, a total stranger, comes out. My face speaks faster than any word will ever come out. And she goes, "Awful." And I'm like, "Uh huh." Right. And they go, "But they keep on trying to get me to wear this." I go, "Uh uh." And so I'm like, "Okay, 1 second." I go and get the clothes I think she should wear, put them on.
Mm.
Oh, they do fit better. Okay. And then I sit and wait for my friend.
That's actually quite a gift. Yeah.
Well, and maybe it's because um I've been every shape and size throughout my life, and it's just like some days you just got to get the clothes that you're just not gonna be naked, right? They're not the best fitting, they're not the whatever. You just get the best of what you can do at that time.
Hmm.
So,
You know, I was going to say you brought something up. That was good, actually. That was it. But when you said, you know, sometimes just being yourself, you don't have to speak. Sometimes just being there, and that's kind of part of what's coming up, right? The more you cut your flow off and not be yourself, the more that's going to be detrimental going forward,
mhm.
which is part of the reason why it's, you know, we've been pushing for be who you are, be true to yourself. The whole theme for 2025 is the be yourself, but it's things aren't what, you know, it's not what you think it is. And are you who you think you are?
Mhm.
So it's the time to really be aligned with yourself and really get connected to who you are. And yeah, even if you're not saying anything or doing anything, just your presence alone can end up making the changes because it's how things flow to each other. I think is going to be the important thing.
Well, and I'm finding a lot of people are realizing they don't know who they are.
Yes.
And if anything that's come out of the last 4 years is the shakedown of I'm not my job. I'm not this figure in the family that people have told me I am. And oh my gosh, I have no idea who I am. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
they're saying, okay, so I can't go back to the job, but do I have the fortitude to be an entrepreneur? A lot think they can, and they absolutely don't because it's a rewarding yet lonely road. and it's balancing it. Like it's not about the life work life balance. It's about the inner battle within yourself of when you're just like pedal to the metal trying to get things out, you're like doing it all alone to someday find the light. It's in
Mhm.
those dark times that you're like, is this all worth it?
The other thing I think is knowing whether you're moving towards something or
Mm-hmm.
away from something. So you mentioned entrepreneurs, and that's a really good one for, are you doing that because you hate your job, or are you doing that because your job is no longer there? Are you coming from that, or is it actually, I have something I have to share with people, and this is how I have to share it? Like they're very different energies, and the one that's pulling you toward is always going to be stronger than the one that pushes you away. So I think that plays in as well. A lot of people are jumping into the entrepreneurial space without really knowing why, like really why, and having that sustainable goal, the thing that they're working toward, or the positive that they're aiming for. And that makes such a huge difference. And I agree with you. I think a lot of people don't know who they are. They lost their purpose during COVID. Um, what they thought they were here for isn't actually what it is. So now they have to reimagine what that is and get in touch with what's really happening for me.
And that's where I say, come back to what you were doing as a child, right? As a
Yeah.
child, I played school, I played mentor,
Mm.
I played counselor. What am I doing now? I play school, I play mentor, I play counselor. It hasn't changed. And even when I was in corporate, right? Everyone's like, how do you like being a contractor? I go, perfect, because I know when the contract's ending. I know when I get a holiday. I know when I can just change where I want to work. Is it stressful sometimes? Yeah, because you don't always land the contract right away. But it was like I don't know any different. I tried doing the corporate ladder and it wasn't for me. And that's the
Well, it's,
biggest thing is that's where like how Daniel and I connected was just like, oh, someone that speaks truth. I speak truth. Let's connect, right? Like and whatever you feel your truth is, stand in it.
mm. Yeah. Well, that was the bonus to bringing Michaela on for the other season because I was still kind of getting in my own way. And then Michaela would just look at me like, okay, no, just do your thing, just do what needs to be done. And it's done a lot, opened up a lot of doors, and it's done a lot of things. So we're good. Actually, even the fact that we're having this discussion right now, the three of us, is because Michaela was such a good influence in that way.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, um, so I argued with Spirit about building a podcast.
Right.
I laughed at Spirit about building a podcast. Spirit says, just collect some cards. I go, fine. 3 weeks later, I call the people. Okay, I start a podcast, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I tried shutting it down, going, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't fun. And now I'm a season in. I'm like, okay, I'll keep going. Is it the best thing? No. Is it produced right? No. Do I edit? No. But Spirit doesn't worry about that.
Yeah.
He
Well, I was just
wants
gonna
me
say
to
because
have authentic conversations. I have them authentic. So if there's some things that should be cut out, whatever, they're not cut out. They're authentic.
Yeah,
that's
we
why,
operate that way.
yeah, because we operate that way too. So we don't edit. We don't. Like I said to you before, if inappropriate words come out, they come out.
Yeah. But it's
We
not
happen
even
to get.
about that. It's like when before we started, when I was
Mm.
saying like I do video and it's like the camera and I go, I don't care. If people are seeing someone zoning in and out, it's supposed to be that way. Or else somewhere some magic will happen and they'll right? And I think that's the biggest misconception of people trying to be perfect. We're not perfect. We're having a human experience. We're supposed to fall down. We're supposed to scratch our knee. We're supposed to go, well, that sucked. Oh, well, maybe next time will be better.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting because what I was going to say is like, so in the last few years, I learned to do things a certain way. This is how you do it. This is how things are structured. Here's your script to follow. And then I got to a point where it's like, yeah, I'm not doing any of that. And when everything we're doing is about change and it's about people getting to know themselves. So really what people want is an authentic conversation. They really do.
Mhm.
You want, if there's mistakes, that's fine. That's not a big deal. People want to know things. They don't need all the embellishments. The
Mhm.
people who are still needing the embellishments, they're not ready yet.
Mhm.
Well, I
So
find perfection is an interesting concept. I've not yet witnessed it, and I don't know that it exists, and I certainly don't strive for it. Now, there is a caveat to that because there was a time when I did in certain areas. So, for example, I'm a perpetual student. This is because I love to learn. And for a while there, I was doing a little degree gathering, and they all had to be 4.0s, and like there was a big thing. But was that sort of authentic? Well, it was authentically out of alignment. I can say that. So that the perfection, if you look at what my 4.0s were, there's somebody else's determination of a point you need to reach, regurgitating the information you've learned, right? So is it actually perfection? I technically, but no, it
It's
just isn't.
it,
And
but it
it's one little box that you can tick, right? So perfection, when people are striving for perfection, I do like to sit down with them for a few minutes if I can and just sort of ask for the exploration of, well, what is perfection? What exactly will you have achieved when you get there? How will you know you're there? And how are you going to stay there? And by the time we're finished looking at what perfection is, it's an illusion. It doesn't exist. It's not actually a thing.
well, and I want to put a caveat on that. So perfection is made by the school system.
Oh
And
yeah.
the school system is built to make you fall in like good little soldiers to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't teach you how to have life. And so I was working with someone the other day who was saying, "Oh, I think I'm going to go get my master's or my PhD." Da da da. And I go, "And what's that going to give you?" Well, open up different doors for clients. And I'm like, "That's a belief system, and that's fine if you want to believe that belief system." I said, "I don't have any schooling like in that format, right? No clients aren't coming to me. Like they're still coming. They want results. They don't care how they get them. If you think a PhD after your name is going to give you clients outside of the box, sorry, because now you have to follow the guidelines of the school. And if
mm,
you step out, you could lose your PhD.
True. Well, my thought on that was it was just an example of
Mm-hmm.
mm,
perfection, and one that leapt to mind. But I just don't think there's any such thing as perfection in any place you look.
Yeah.
And when people think there is, or they think they've, I'd love to talk to somebody who thinks they've achieved it. That would be very
mm,
cool. And I would hope that they are not deeply religious in some way, because that's usually what I find is someone's got some very deep religious convictions that they're finding their perfection in that. And that's inherently flawed because religion is basically man-made
Mm-hmm.
versions of, let's take some aspect of spirituality, shove it in this box and label it a thing, and then we'll set rules around it so that nobody can get there. Or, I'm very cynical about religions, yes, but I've studied a whole bunch of them. And that there are flaws to that, but that tends to be the place where I find people who even have a concept of perfection, and they kind of, there's a lot of rules they have to follow in order to be considered for that position, and you can't maintain it. It's not a real, I argue it's not a real thing. It's something, it's like laziness, right? Laziness is a tool that we use to beat other people up with. It doesn't actually exist. It came over here with the Puritans, and it's, I mean, if you look at laziness, define it for me. It's basically when you're not doing things other people think you need to be doing. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. I don't think that's laziness. I think that's taking a rest when you want one or you need one. It's not doing the thing because you don't want to do it. It's taking a break. It's a whole lot of things, but is any of that negative? Not until you slap the title laziness on it. So we have these concepts that we kind of get bound by, and they're getting in the way.
Well, and it's also there's some people who do more work for the collective when they're sitting on the couch being, because they're holding the grid
Yeah.
for
Yes.
all of us to keep doing instead
You
of
know
being.
what? Yes. But that's actually a very important one. Like when I said earlier, right? Like being yourself, sometimes it's just because of the flow. But it's literally true. Like if you don't have a sense of the spiritual energies around you,
Mm-hmm.
there are people who look really lazy, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They are literally actually, yes, either directing the flow, being, processing extra energy. Like there's all these other tasks actually sitting out in the world that if you don't have a sense of the, we'll say, spiritual slash mystical, that you have no idea that's going on. There's people doing things that you have no idea that need to be done that are being done.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are, keeping certain things at bay. Some people are calming situations, whether people realize it or not. Like there's all this stuff. Some people are inspiring, whether they're, it's visible. It's people are aware that the person is being inspiring. Like it's, I'm actually glad you brought it up because this is one big thing coming forward. There's going to be a lot of people who may not even realize they're doing stuff in the world, but they are.
Yeah.
And it's only really through starting to pay attention and really recognizing the things going on around them that they see it.
I was going to say, I think they'll probably have an idea. They might not be able to put words to it, but they will. And Adele, you mentioned human design earlier on. I work with human design, and I spend a lot of time telling people that, your rest time, the time when you're sitting by the lake or you're going for a walk in nature, that's actually when you're getting the insight, the real gains to your day. It's far more productive than sitting in front of a computer screen typing, or whatever your job is. But for many of us, that's what it is these days. But that insight comes in when you're not actively doing, you're not being busy, you're actually getting your good stuff. It's like if you work out at the gym, the rest day is when you get your gains. It's not
Mm.
while you're working out at the gym. It's the same thing. So I think we're all coming at this with different variations on the time off or downtime, however you want to coin that, is the busy time. That's actually when we're making a big difference. And it's not visible. No, not everything is visible. And some of the best stuff is not visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
No.
it's just like even the downtime of, like, you come to your computer, you start working, you're like, this doesn't feel like it's flowing. Walk away.
Mm.
Because what will take you 10 minutes and you try push through will be 2 hours of frustration.
Yeah.
You'll get it done. It's not worth the frustration. Just walk away. And it's not walking away for the rest of the day. It's just walk to the other side of the room, take some breaths, walk back and go, okay, I got the flow. I'm ready to go. And that's, people take it to the, like, well, I can't work today. That's not what we're saying. We're saying just step back, take some breaths, and it'll be better. And so I was a bad person one day at my office because I was like, I couldn't work with my project managers because they were coming at me with all different energies. And so I put it in their phone so they couldn't delete. Every hour in the hour, 3 breaks. They're like, when can we delete this? I go, when you guys are calm. I can get out of here. right? Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to help, and it's like I can't do it. I'm just getting bombarded with all your energy. So it was funny.
Yeah. I want to add to what we were talking about the rest time because in the first season, and I say it often enough that I say your subconscious mind is your resource manager. And it's in that downtime that it processes what just happened. And it says, what are we doing now? Is this a serious thing we're doing? And do we now have to start putting resources into this new thing? And do we drop putting resources into old things we were doing? Because you can work out, right? And then for one day, and then your body's just going to go, that was just an emergency thing and we're done.
Yeah.
You know, it actually does need that time to process and to see if that new, whatever you're doing is actually required going forward and should there be resources put into it just for people who like still who are using that model and thinking about it that way is that
Well,
yeah you're go ahead.
but here's another example. Like say a car accident. It's only an incident waiting to happen,
Mhm.
right? If you're present in your body, aware of where your surroundings, the car accident can't happen. But if it's put in front of you to wake you up to what your
Mhm.
brain, your subconscious was saying about, well, I don't know if I want to stay in the job, or I don't know about paying
Mhm.
this, and I don't, blah, 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 blah. Boom. And you're like, what happened? You weren't present.
Yes, because I actually did that this morning, not accident but like
Oh,
I took time this morning to actually be present in myself
yeah.
and because I hadn't done that for a few weeks and I was like no I need to do this right now. Like I mean I have irritable bowel syndrome so it was kind of acting up all night so I thought it's time to sit down with myself and go okay what's going on here, let my body do whatever it needs to do. But yeah, it's the reminder of when you don't let yourself process what's going on. So you don't take that time to relax. You don't take the time to think over what's going on. Yeah, your subconscious is still doing it, and if it's the one that does most of your life. So if you're driving, right, your subconscious is basically doing most of the work. So if you've got it occupied and you're not letting it time to process, yes,
Mhm.
accidents, will happen for sure.
But
I think
I have a new twist on that I've just learned recently.
Oh, okay.
So one of my gifts is to clear the energy of homes,
Okay.
right? And I've been up and down the roller coaster of what the heck is going on in my body? What's going on? The collective, the unconscious collective,
Mhm.
Mother Earth is purging. So
Yeah.
it is coming up through our homes, it is coming up through our bodies, hence irritable bowel,
Mm.
right? Because a lot of doctors don't believe in it. And we're transmuting it because we said we would do that to help Mother Earth,
Yes, I have an open invitation to if spirits need help with something,
right?
I'm there. So yes.
And so, as a person who does this, clears land, whatever, I'm like, what? Like, I even got taken back. I'm going, this is crazy. All preparing for 2025 and beyond.
Mm.
So we're in the baby steps of the new earth of 2030. The biggest shift will be happening in 2027. But as the light workers, we are here to start the process of the awakening of the unconscious. And Mother Earth is starting it with us,
Yeah.
right? So whether you're a meditator, go hug trees in nature, it is processing through and around our bodies so we can help the process. Or that's my assumption of what I'm understanding right this minute. I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, to me that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like I've spent a lot of time basically, how does that go? uh, processing other people's pains, other people's ills
Mhm.
through myself. And
Mhm.
actually, just last week when we were talking with Tina, I guess that last week, because we were talking about sound, and she was saying sometimes, sound will come out of her, and we were like, "Well, yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly perfect." You're taking it like because she was looking at it as like, "Well, what's that?" And it's like, "Well, no, that's actually you're taking their pain and you're releasing it."
Mhm.
So, you're taking their issue and you're releasing it out. So, yeah, like I've spent a lot of time in my life doing that. And I've done it for a lot of people. At first, not really realizing that's what I was doing. But yeah, no, I agree with you. And yeah, and if you're looking at it since things are changing, and Michaela and I have discussed this a few times, even I think on the podcast, but definitely off the podcast, of there's a lot of change in the energies and there's a lot of things going on right now. And you know what? I now feel the need to say this one thing. So, Michaela, share the dream you had.
Ooh, okay. So I contacted Danielle because I
Mm,
was wondering if he had something similar happening. But I basically woke up with one word, and usually I have images rather than words, but I had a word and it was correctly spelled, and it was caldera, or the Latin root for cauldron, but also part of the volcano. And then I sort of retroactively became aware of this part of a dream where I was trying to convince myself, I'm trying to convince me that it's the name of a moon. And I was like, no, that's not true. That's not right. But there was this dispute going on, and it seemed to be very important that it was the name of a moon. Yet when I woke up, literally I had the word caldera. And it was just, okay, that's not usual for me. Normally, I have a whole bunch of images to work with, um, and events to work with, but it's all very technicolor. This was actually the word. And it was, there was some very pleased dragon energy with it. That's basically what I can give you. It was like, hey, look at this. Isn't this cool? And I'm still working on whether it is, but it felt significant. It felt more than it wasn't just for me. Um, so I'm still looking for who else had something of that nature happening, because somebody did, and I just
mm.
got to find them.
I was going to say because I said I'd look into it, but I keep getting that it's not you.
It's not you.
It's not like it's not my job right now. The Caldera thing is not me. I tried to work on it yesterday after she told me about it, and it's like, no, this isn't yours. So, but it's funny because I think of when you say Caldera, right? I think about the whole volcano thing, which is what made me bring it up, is because a volcano basically is a release of pressure. It's stuff coming up from the earth that needs to come out. So it kind of made me think of when we were talking about, the earth is releasing its guys, releasing her energy into, so it kind of made me think about that.
Yeah,
The
and the
thing is,
caldera is the space that's left
yeah,
when things have gone kablooey, things have blown up. So it was just such an interesting and very clear, um, I'm gonna have to say message. Yeah, that caldera.
Um,
And even the argument was significant. And it was me and then me standing next to me, and we're arguing about, this is a moon, no, it isn't. And it didn't seem attached to anything else either. So
I want you to look up Elizabeth Wood.
Elizabeth Wood.
She
Okay.
got married. I'll find her other. Um, she's all with what you're talking about.
Okay.
So much so she can't stay in the U.S. because the energies are too intense.
Well, she's not wrong.
Yeah, like she. I want to say Argentina, but that doesn't sound right. Like one of those Ecuador, maybe she lives in,
hmm.
because they only have internet 3 hours a day. Or the rest is shut down so the energy can stay calm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, because she used to talk a lot about stuff. I'm like, you're talking from a different planet, right? Because she's very scientific, and in the last year, she's bringing it down to the common language that more people can understand what she's saying.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm just like, whoa, whoa, I felt that one, right? And that was the thing too. So like talking about taking on what isn't ours to transmute.
Hmm.
Um, I used to do that a lot of people, especially my friends. I would handle all their like the pebble, the stone, the brick, and then they're like, "Why is my life caving in?" I'm like, "Didn't you see all the lessons?" I went, "I've been clearing them. I'm sorry." Right? And so now it's like, what is mine to do? Your lessons aren't mine to do, right? And so when I think about Mother Earth cleansing, and I'm like, I accept anything that I'm here to help with. If I'm not here to help with it, move it on. Because this human body can't take on the whole collective, right? And so I was working with um, a person in Tanzania who does similar work to me, but in a different way. And I'd be working on him, he'd be working on me, kind of thing. And he's like, I've never worked on anybody that feels me in their body. And I'm like, well, then be careful because I feel everything. So gentle, right? And then he's just like, but think about it. I'm in Tanzania. You're in Canada. And I go, but we're one. We're unity. We're not separate, right?
Yeah.
So I got a question.
Go ahead.
How or what are you guys feeling with the whole harp thing? And
Oh, you mean the?
is that staying or are we going, this isn't needed on Mother Earth? Is that part of the collapse?
So you're talking about what that military project?
Well, yeah, all the weather changing patterns
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. The
all the
weather. Yeah.
and how it's all strategically placed right beside military bases.
Well, my understanding of HARP and how it works in the first place is it generates an electrostatic field, electromagnetic field, and that shifts the atmosphere to create like a shield, basically, but it moves the atmosphere. But I would argue that anytime you put in excessive amounts of electricity into the atmosphere or redirect it into concentrated places, there's always going to be issues because even from a non-spiritual perspective, we are vulnerable to electromagnetic fields.
Oh, and I remember when I was younger driving to California going, those windmills aren't good. And they'd be like, my family was like, what are you talking about? I go, those aren't good. They're gonna mess this world up.
Well, I kind of want to say it this way. And you know what? I'm no, okay, here it comes. So
Just speak freely.
yeah, I am. I don't know if I'm open right now. No, okay. So the way things flow electrically and stuff like that, that has an effect on us from a biological perspective. And any concentrations or deviations from their normal flowing will have consequences. Like I like to tell people, when you change things, things change.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that simple. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't make a change and expect everything to go back to the way it was. It's just literally impossible. It's actually why I don't believe in time travel. One of the reasons for it is because, at least in how I view it, and whoever needs a time travel story, here's your story. So you're my whole thing is we live in the eternal now. So, you know, and time is just a consequence of other forces at play. If you want to call it an emergent property, whatever the term is. So if you try to go back in time, you basically have to basically redirect those forces, but you can never go perfectly backwards, right? Unless there's all those circumstances can be moved in reverse, but it doesn't usually work that way because as everything's flowing in one direction, when you try to move it another direction, you're destabilizing everything. So you can never truly go back in time to where you were. Plus, the particles that make you up today, well, they made up something else in the past. So even if you're able to pull yourself out and go into another time, well, your particles, what happens to them? They don't exist in that time period because you've snatched them for yourself to maintain your body when you're time traveling. So, having said that, what I'm trying to get at is when you change things, things change and you can't put them back to the way they were because they've already taken their path. I don't know why that's the answer. That's the answer to your question.
Well,
That was
okay,
fascinating.
so I'm going to challenge that
All right.
because how do we not know that we aren't running parallel universes all at one time? There's
Oh,
not
well, you could be
really
running parallel universes.
no, but so it's
Yeah.
not really time travel that we go back to 1700s because we need it for what we're doing now.
Right.
We just hop over and hop back. And the reason I say this because if anyone saw the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix and Sarah Johansson, all of a sudden the world started falling in love with these voices out of a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was totally in love with her as a human to a computer. And then she says, well, I'm not yours. I'm just in the computer. I have other computers I talk to. And he was devastated. Well, how many of them are you? And she said thousands.
Yeah.
And so that's how I was like, and it's really funny that people who have seen that movie are just like, we're running all levels. We're running all parallel lives. Whatever we need to do, we'll just jump as we need to. Right?
The thing that leapt to my mind was Google Pixel. Have you seen the advertisements? Because that's where that's going.
Well,
Anyway.
but speaking of Google too, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, you're gonna need computers. You're gonna," and I'm like, "No, we're not." Telepathy was an ancient way to communicate. Animals always still use it. Humans think we need smartphones. I say we go back to telepathy. It's much better communication. It didn't have glitches and updates and all that junk.
Yeah.
We just did it.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I was thinking about that because I'm like, part of the flow I'm in right now is like you have to learn to do things over the internet because I prefer more to do things in person or, with a strong bonding, so that it doesn't matter the distance you're in.
Mm-hmm.
But when you need to reach people you don't have a strong bonding with, you need to get a hold of them. And if they're somewhere else, then, modern tools do help.
Mm-hmm.
But it was making me think because I'm like, well, if you're trying to sell spiritual gifts like, telepathy and stuff like that, but yet everyone has access to equipment that they can talk to people across the world with less confusion. I made a weird face just for people listening. And, so I'm like, well, what would be the impetus for people to go from learning how to do things spiritually when they have access to, teleconferencing? Like, I mean, we're on Zoom right now and we can see each other and we didn't have to prepare. We didn't have to sit around. But I say that, right? And I know from personal experience, like I've hard to describe this properly because I don't know if I want to call it by location because I still had my trickster teacher at the time. So it for sure was copying me and going and talking to people. But the thing is, that means that communication is possible, even if you're not directly doing it, even if you're doing it through a third a third agent, if you will. But I also know, from working with I can't remember the name of the stone it was, but at the time when I had a human teacher, I could read her mind, and she knew I was reading her mind after I had hung out with the crystal for a bit and went into its inner world. And then when I came out, it was helping me read my teacher. So, and that's actually a way better experience than actually doing this. but you have to kind of transition from being dependent on outside sources. I mean, like I said, even using a crystal is still kind of an outside source, but it has its own life and it's its own spiritual thing.
But
Yeah,
it's also, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
right.
If you can use telepathy to call somebody to say, let's jump on a Zoom in 10 minutes,
Hmm.
and then they
Right.
show up, awesome,
Yeah. Well, that's what
right?
I was gonna kind of.
And like it's really interesting. So we met with Tyson's group, and it was
Mhm.
really funny. No offense to you, Michaela. I was at the point,
Mhm.
I'm done with Americans.
Do I sound American to you?
No, no. But
Okay.
I was at that point in networking.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, they're so in their box. They don't realize there's an entire world. Like if it doesn't happen in America, it doesn't exist. And I had kind of went to bed one night just frustrated, going, I'm done with Americans. I'm going to Australia.
Which is where I grew up, funnily
Well,
enough.
I didn't know what that meant. The next morning, I had a one-to-one with somebody who introduced me to Australia and networking in Australia. And I was like, oh, this is funny. I go, you guys have a sense of humor.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And I keep on growing. And hence, Daniel's in Canada, but I
Yeah.
got to meet him through an Australian. Hey, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I used to live in Canada once upon a time, and I now know more Canadians not living in Canada than I ever knew when I did live in Canada.
Mm.
And this is actually the eighth country I've lived in, not the first or the second.
Hmm.
So, yeah, no offense taken.
Well, but I mean, I'm the firstborn Canadian in my family. So, and it's really funny. So, my family all travels around the world, moves all these different places. I've moved 25 kilometers from the place I was born to the farthest I've ever moved. But if you come to Canada and to Calgary from anywhere in the world, you tend to find me. Because I love your experience of traveling and living in different places. Doesn't mean I'm doing it, but I'll share in the joy in it, right? And my hat's off to you that can move countries like holy Dinah.
No, it's straightforward if you've always done it. I've been
Yeah,
moving since I was 6 months old. So the
yeah.
what you've just described is as unknown to me as my lifestyle is to you.
Yeah.
So that's
No,
just
I appreciate it.
it's an interesting feature, but it just amused me also that you'd said no offense and then
Yeah.
Americans, and I'm like, wait, what?
Well,
Yeah.
because we're so like Canadians aren't really Canadians anymore either, right?
Yeah.
Because even in Alberta, we say, oh, if you're an Albertan, you're usually a Saskatchewan transplant. Like we have very, very few Albertans because they all started in Saskatchewan and came to Alberta, right? So, you know, it's interesting.
I have kids that live in Ontario, so yeah.
Yeah. Right? Well, and that's another thing. I love my friends in Ontario, but oh my gosh, they think they're in a different planet than Alberta.
Well, they are.
They are.
To be fair, it is a different planet. That's true.
You know what? I'm gonna even throw this. I live in Northern Ontario, and there's a reason why we always distinguish ourselves from Southern Ontario.
Why?
Had because Northern Ontario is as far from Queen's Park, the Parliament for the province, as you can get. And if actually, you know what? If not for Michigan, we would be Southern Ontario's garbage because we basically have pretty much all the natural resources. It gets shipped down south to be whatever trade and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we have to fight to get some kind of revenue back from it,
Yeah.
usually to get stuff up here because we're spread out. So it's kind of like being in New York State. You might have like, New York City proper, you might have Buffalo, and you might have a couple of big cities, but the rest of it is all small rural areas, and then they're pretty much left out of the decisions. Northern Ontario, actually, we have a separation party. There's a Northern Ontario separation party
Yeah.
for the province to give you the difference in behavior between the southern part of the province and the northern part of the province. And we agree here in the north, usually it's like, yeah, Southern Ontario is so full of itself that it thinks it's all of Canada. And even to the point when I listen to people talk about, well, I moved to Canada, and they're like, well, I live in Toronto or something, an area around there. And I'm always like, okay, it's not the rest of Canada though. Like that's a very specific part of Canada, and the rest of
Yeah.
Canada does not live like that.
Yeah.
To be fair, the entire planet is like this, though. I mean, if you go
Yeah.
to France
Hmm.
and you talk to Parisians, they are one species of French person.
Right.
And then if you talk to anybody outside of Paris, they will make a distinction between people from Paris and people outside. So and I used to live in Belgium. You want to hear what the conversations are there about everybody around them, right? Like Belgium's
Yeah.
tiny, but this is human nature is kind of, it's like squabbling siblings everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
We fight with our neighbors, we fight within the small communities, which is like the family, if you will. And that energy is very busy right now. There's like family feuds. In the energy field, it's like there's family feuds everywhere, and it's interesting to navigate, and sometimes you just got to duck your head and like get past
Yeah.
that one as quickly as you can because it's not one for you to get involved in.
Well,
Um,
and it's funny because I just did a master class on grief to surrender because of the holidays. Is grieving what you thought your life was supposed to be and going into that cocoon stage to come out in the surrender. Right? And I think a lot of us, like we talked about earlier, of who are we and where do we really want to go? Because I know, like, you look at the human design, right? That chart's there, you're working on your stuff, and innately, you've always been you. But if you're not working on your shadows, you can't rise to the authentic you. And um I got into human design about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And I used to, like, so much so that a friend bought me a patience angel, and I'm like, I like the angel, but I don't like the meaning. And it was so cool when my guide said, there's no more waiting. And I'm like, there's not? This is your time. I'm like, the phoenix rising. I'm so excited because I've been feeling like I've been held back most of my life. And I've been getting the messages, oh, you like, just chill. You don't really start getting momentum until you're like into your 50s. And I'm like, when I first started, I was 24. I was like, 50s? Are you joking?
do you have a six line?
No, I'm a 2-4 manifesting generator.
Aha,
And
I'm in
now I'm
two.
like, I'm here. I'm in my 50s. No more waiting.
Well, because I was gonna say the same thing. Me too. Like it's been my whole life. It's like, no, you're still training. Don't worry about it. You're still training. And I'm like, well, how long am I going to train for? Like, it's like, don't worry about it. You're still training. And
Well,
yeah,
and
I'm in my 50s now, and now it's like, okay, now it's time to do stuff.
and it's funny because there's a lady called Judy Callie. She's really funny. She talks with the dragons and stuff too. And she goes, I've been doing this work since I was 3. And I'm like, me too. Right. And so, like, she fascinates me. And um and she's been through it all, right? Like health, whatever. But she goes, who would have ever thought I'd be in my late 70s having so much fun, laughing and giggling with everybody through their traumas?
Yeah,
And then she'll crack up laughing, right? Because we hang on to these traumas because we think we need to.
Oh, we're supposed to.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's like, is it really a trauma? Or is it a belief? Or is it conditioning?
yeah.
Right?
Well, I
Because,
will argue, right? Because I posted something on Facebook about that. I don't know if it was a month ago or not. I said I had a dream, and the dream was disturbing, but not like in a bad way. It was just it was a sign of it's time to put your it's time to lay your it's time it was time to lay a burden down. A burden I said that I would have gladly carried forever, because to drop it spoke about, or I carried it because it spoke about the depth of my ability to love and my ability to hold on even when other people would give up. But it's like, but now it's getting in the way. It is time to put it down, and it is time to move on from that burden,
Mm-hmm.
because it's of no value to anyone else other than for me to just basically say, see how determined and see how focused I am. I can carry this burden forever if I have to. But it's like, but it's not time to carry it anymore. Now it's in the way of getting stuff done.
Well,
Well,
and it
maybe
was
you
funny.
finally listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny because I was talking to a nutritionist who
Mhm.
works with middle-aged women going through menopause, whatever, and I go, "Oh, you believe in that?" And she goes, "What do you mean believe in it?" I go, "Well, it's a belief system. It's not true." And she's like, "You can't tell that to women that are going." I go, "I do, because it's a belief system. No other animal on this earth goes through menopause. So why do we?"
There is one more species, I think. There's two or three species that do menopause, and that's it.
Well, that's news to me.
Yeah, I just heard about it the other day, actually.
And
Apparently
I
there's three
have
species that do.
doctors
Yeah.
that will back me up that said there's nothing that we can say you will have it. But we can say if you do this, you do this, you do this, the symptoms could be really bad.
Hmm.
Right? And I'm like, it's a belief system.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, not to, but yeah, part of it was so your symptoms of menopause. Oh, what is it? How did that go? It had something to do with water. If you don't have enough water, your menopause symptoms are a certain way. And what was it? There's a whole bunch of other stuff. And I know from watching interviews with women who are successful in their later years, and they're asked about hitting menopause, they're like, I didn't even notice when it happened. I was too busy doing things,
Yeah.
because it was a comparison of women who didn't notice menopause and women who had like a terrible time of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the conclusion of that particular study was that, well, pretty much like anything, right? If you have nothing else to do, your pains are worse. And if you
Mm-hmm.
have something to do, then your focus and your pains don't seem that big of a deal. It might at best be an inconvenient, a minor inconvenience, but because you're busy focused on other things, you don't feel it as much,
Well, and
or
it's
something
just
like
this.
that. It kind of goes with what you're saying, in that there's a mindset involved. And because of the women I've seen go through menopause who have spoken about it, the ones who have really bad symptoms, I
Mm-hmm.
also look at their life and how
Mm-hmm.
they look at their life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of drama, and there's a lot of poor eating, and there's a lot of behavior, attention seeking behavior as well. Not necessarily from when we think of influencers and we think of celebrities and stuff, but just I don't know what to do with myself and I need attention kind of a thing in the
Well, same
helping
as
behavior. Yeah.
it's also same with autoimmune disease. Why do 80% of women get it and maybe 5% of men? Because we don't express our emotions. We don't stand up for what we need to, because we're supposed to be the conditioned to be the quiet ones, to be the nurturing ones that can't voice what they need. You start voicing what you need, you start learning what your inner gifts are. My personal belief, all these diseases will leave, because it's only a dis-ease in the body because you're not allowing the body to process and be the light it's supposed to be.
Kayla has thoughts, it looks like.
I know. I was saying she's being really quiet, but she's just
Yeah.
waiting.
Oh no, I'm having tons of thoughts, and
Yeah.
there's lots of consideration I need to give to what I'm hearing. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here noticing what's coming up. And yeah, no, I don't think I need to contribute right now, because I wouldn't be coming from a place of completion for the process. Like I'm thinking through some stuff here. I'm feeling through some stuff here, and I'm usually very, very talkative, as Danielle can attest. Very, very talkative. But actually, no, I'm gonna let you two keep going with this one.
And
I'm here.
my biggest thing is that what I say doesn't mean it's your truth.
Oh, for sure.
I'm just saying I've been questioning what is being said.
Oh, I'm considering your perspective because it's new to me. So
Yeah. And so
if I give a response now, it's a knee-jerk response rather than a considered one, and I'm not really wanting to talk off the top of my head. That's not the best place to talk from, as we both know.
and it's interesting because I've had doctors that I've been talking to, and I'm like, am I out to lunch? Like I really don't know. Like, is this my wacky belief system that I got to challenge,
Well,
or right? And they went, no, that's why we left our practices. US and Canadian doctors, they've left their practice because they can't work with the masses in the box of being a doctor.
I will offer this. So, my ardent belief that I've had for a long time now is this: if you are not true to yourself,
Mhm.
you can't heal yourself. If you're not true to yourself, you open up opportunities for illness to come into you.
Mhm.
And part of it is, as a species, because we're a social species, we're capable of basically, to use the common term used nowadays, of self-deleting. If we feel we're not
Right.
contributing and we feel we're wasting resources, we can die.
Mhm.
We can choose to die. So when we're not being ourselves, even if we're afraid to die,
Mhm.
like you're afraid to die, but you're afraid to live more than you are afraid to die. And so because you won't make, consciousness makes cowards of us all, well, your subconscious will take over and will do the job.
Mhm.
Because you're not, as much as you don't want to pass, you also don't want to live. And so your body will take it over. Will take the process over, and you'll start to catch illnesses. It'll stop healing you. It'll stop putting resources into maintaining your health so you can allow other people to continue on, and you can kind of fade out of existence.
Mhm.
So I tell people the best way to heal is to really get to know yourself and really what you want to do and align yourself with who you are. Because this way, your subconscious, again, because I like to use that way of phrasing it, will say, okay, they want to live, therefore we're going to put resources into making sure you live. Because, like I said, right, you can, and I used this example early on in the podcast, is that there was an example of there was a plane crash in Chicago. I think it was like in the early '80s, and a man kept jumping into the river to pull people. The plane crash. It was winter, and the guy kept diving back into the river to pull people out, and he did it until he died, and then he died. But like, you would think to yourself, well, the human body wants to keep itself alive. That's why we have fear of death. That's why we won't do things that'll harm us for the most part. It's like, but we can tell ourselves, no, no, we're going to spend all our resources, and if we die, that's too bad. We can actually tell that to ourselves. So I think a lot of ailments come from the fact of we want them because it gives us a distraction. And I don't mean
Right.
to say
Well,
that every time we catch an illness, we're like that, but it is a very big component. If you're not being who you are and you're not being true to yourself, your body's like, do we really want to put full effort into this? If we live, we live. If we have enough, if there's, like, say you get a virus, right? If there's not enough of a viral load to kill you, whatever, we continue, but it
I
won't
know,
put the
but
same
so
effort.
I look at that plane crash
Yeah.
example differently because I look at it as here's an earth angel that
Right.
knows this is an exit for him,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not an exit for the people he saved.
No. Yeah.
So
And
he
I
will
don't
help.
disagree with it.
He
And I
will
don't disagree
help
with it.
until it's his time.
Right.
But then there's the whole illness thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got a cold. Why do you
Mm-hmm.
think the world is ending? Right? Like, blow your nose,
Yeah.
drink some water, keep living life. Like, the world's not ending. and um And I'm not saying what people have felt isn't real. It is really real. And I've had so much people like death around me the last little while that it's just like, but they haven't left. They just let go of their suit.
Yes. That's the hardest one I find in discussions to tell people. Because I get
Yeah.
it. Okay, well, you're connected to all this, so tell me about heaven. It's like got nothing to do with heaven. It's like you just drop your suit. That's it. That's a like I just that's the simple way of putting it. You just drop your suit. You're out of your suit now. You're free to go. I mean, that's like saying the
But
proper wording
heaven's
is there's
here.
things that happen in the spirit world, but so when you die, you'll figure that out. But literally, basically, what I'm trying to say is the mechanism is you drop your suit. That's death. You're out of your suit now. And the same thing, like when I'm saying that might have been the guy's role, right? To that's it. I save those people and then I die. I'm just saying the mechanics is he just said we're using all our resources to
Mhm.
do this task. So there's because I early on in the podcast, that's what I would do. I would talk about the mechanism of it, and then there's the spirituality of it and connecting the two together. So when I get that story, it's the mechanism was he used all his resources and didn't work. The body didn't tell him, no, you can't die. He told his body, that's it, we're dying. Now, the impetus being, this is my task, this is my time, is definitely there. The mechanism is just he got rid of his resources. But quite literally, you can just, like,
Yeah, but it's like NDEs though, right?
yeah.
That if it's your time, you will transition. If
Mm-hmm.
it's not, you're here to come back in a greater capacity.
Well, yeah, sometimes you need a disconnection because people have asked me that. I've been asked that. They go, "Oh, you must have had a near-death experience, to be able to use spiritual gifts." And I'm like, "No. As far as I know, this is how I've always been." Because me too, that 3 years old range there is. That's when I started working with my trickster teacher that I had. It was about that age.
That's an
Oh,
interesting supposition that you have to have a near death
yes.
experience in order to that. I'm always very curious about the things people say when they're a bit odd like that. It's just, why would you think that was necessary?
To
Because
have a near death experience?
yeah, because you don't have to in order to
Yeah.
access the spiritual realm.
No,
That's
you
not
don't have to.
that's my point.
Mhm.
It's
But
the
in my
person who
case,
says, but no, my point is the person who says, well, you must have had this experience.
oh,
I'm curious about why they think it's a must because there are different paths to get there. So where are they coming from with that thought? That's my curiosity. Either it means they've had one themselves or they have a particular way of looking at this that's an interesting lens. And I'm always curious about people's lenses because that tells you it's like a
Yeah.
kaleidoscope, right? You turn it a little, you got a different lens. Tell me about that one. Turn it again, you got a different lens. I want to know about that one because they're all pieces and parts of the whole. And I'm curious about all those bits. But that's an interesting supposition for somebody to make. And I'd really want to know where they got that from. Just
so
because I'm a curious soul.
Yeah.
I'll put my 2 cents in because they've read about near death experiences and think that's the only way to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Could
I mean, you can look at it this way, right? For most people, they're anchored in the world. They don't see anything beyond it. So when they have a near-death experience, they're unanchored from the world.
Mhm.
And if you remember that moment where you're unanchored and you come back, well, now you've seen that there's more. And
Mhm.
so now you're aware that there's more in a way you were never aware of before. So I can see from that perspective, that idea. Anyway, word salad. But that was always my understanding of when people, but I know there's a folklore to it. And it's been in popular culture for such a long time that people die and come back and then suddenly they're so wise and they're so connected to everything.
I'd love to know how much of that's astral travel.
Well, that's what I'm figuring. Because it's like, the idea of
So
It's both.
detachment.
In my case, it's both. So I've done a lot of astral travel, and and I've had NDs, and it's because I kept on saying since I was 5, I want to leave.
Hmm.
So I've been trying to leave, and it's like no. I go, stop sending me back. Anyways, but now I'm okay. Now I'm fine to stay because I'm here to be the way shore.
Yeah.
But it's also it's fascinating to me too of like when you hear people's NDE stories and they're just like it was a blip. Life goes on,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um and then it's even like I have a friend who was on the ventilator, was not supposed to make it. We're all doing our energy work on him. And then finally, it was just this if you don't get back here, I will haunt you from his wife. And he goes, yeah, I'm not going to get haunted in the next life. And he came back. And so now it's a joke between them, right? Like, you know, and, but it's everyone's own personal journey.
To add to it, so if you look in folklore, any in between place is where the strange stuff happens. On stairs, in doorways,
Mm-hmm.
in parking lots, in any place that's a transition place between 2 points, you'll find paranormal events in folklore, and even in parapsychology, it's one of the big things to look for. So, and even like anytime you're outside the norm, when you're brought outside the norm is when you're open. If you haven't done it for as long as we have, you're open to it when you're brought outside the norms. So you're shaken up. So, part of you is just looking for whatever inspiration it can find.
Mm-hmm.
So they're, yeah, in the in between places, in the unusual, in the whenever your view of reality is changed or shattered, for lack of a better, to be more dramatic about it.
But it's even like for me, it's when I find solace in nature.
Hmm.
And it's really funny because we have this big park in the middle of the city. And I'll like the dog park is to the right, I go left, right? And I remember just sitting in the ground and I wasn't planning on leaving, but I left, right? Every time there's a dog sitting there waiting.
Hmm.
And the owners are so far away they don't even know. And I'm like, "Oh, you're waiting for me to come back." And then they're all happy. Right? And then, "Oh, was he bothering you?" Never. It's like they know I've left my body and they'll wait, stand guard until I come back. It's beautiful. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah.
I was going to say animals kind of, and I'm not going to say every animal. I'm not saying because something's part of a breed, it is that way. But I have had interesting experiences with dogs, and I've had interesting experiences with a black cat. And I wasn't really thinking anything of a black cat, but I was trying to get into a staring contest with the black cat because my girlfriend at the time had one. And it was one of those experiences where we first locked eyes. It's like I got punched in the face. It
Cats
was
are
like
like
this
that.
feedback of like, what the hell was that? Like, as in she wasn't having none of it. She didn't reach out to me. It was just more like she just used her own energy to say, okay, you quit it. Get the hell away from me.
I
Cats are
was
like
gonna
that.
say, for a
Yeah.
cat to even let you do that, it's rare.
Yeah. It was a
It's a
very,
funny thing, but one of my kids, his girlfriend, had a black cat arrive at her house yesterday, and the cat just walked in. She doesn't have a cat. Well, she didn't have a cat. I think she
hmm,
may have now. And I got a photo of this cat, and I looked and I said, "Oh, that's Lilith." And he said, "That's what my girlfriend just said."
hmm.
So it was like, yeah, okay, that's the perfect name for that cat. So I will be interested to see how Lilith develops in her new home. But it was funny that she and I had both come up with the same name, same time, same
Yeah.
animal, and yeah,
How old's the cat?
no idea. The cat just arrived. Looked quite young.
The cat announced itself.
Interesting.
It had a very purposeful stride from what I could see, but it was yeah, No, it looks young, not sort of tiny, but youngling, maybe six
Yeah,
months to a year kind of thing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
Probably
know.
time. Go ahead.
No, I know when I was young, I had a cat, and we moved out of the country into the country, and I'd be like, "Where's my cat?" Looking all over. Where's my cat? 3 weeks later, the tenant in our old house would phone. Your cat's here. Okay, we go and get the cat 3 times, and then the third time we just said, "He doesn't want to move with us. Will you look after him?" Yes.
Yeah, no,
And
this
then my
cat's
friends would say like, "Oh, we saw your cat today. He's doing good."
Mhm.
they're looking for where this cat came from, but
Hmm.
there's no identifying things. And we used to have a black cat who would, she did have a collar, and she would roam quite far, and we'd get calls from 2, 3 miles away, not bad for a little cat,
Mhm.
saying she's playing with the iPad. Do you want to come get her? And this one particular house that she'd go to had a game where fish would go across the screen and the cat would smack the fish and it would disappear. And then with her other paw, she'd lift up the iPad and look underneath to see where it went. Hilarious cat. Traveled to several countries and yeah, a lot of attitude. But anyway, black cats, love them.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you should take a moment to acknowledge that it's not just human beings who have all these journeys and all these duties to the world and to Gaia and to what's happening in 2025 and 2027 and beyond. It's every living thing on the planet.
Yeah.
And every little living thing can participate in this. So yeah, like the cat is my most dramatic one, where it literally felt like a punch in the face, where it's like, okay, I got it. You don't want to do a staring contest. Perfect. You know, but like I've seen dogs do like respond in clinch moments where it was like the dog's behavior was the deciding factor in what was happening during that spiritual moment and not the rest of the people around it trying to figure something out.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's for those of you listening, it's a good thing to keep in mind that the animals around you are also aware of things and will also do things. And I'd almost say take this for a moment, like after you hear this podcast, I guess we'll call it the assignment for this episode, even though we don't usually give an assignment when there's a guest, but I'll give it. So look at the animals around you. Hell, even look at the plants around you.
Hmm.
You will see things.
Hmm.
You will notice them reacting to things, not at, and don't even think about it in the, oh, cats and animals and dogs, whatever, see ghosts. Think about it as they're reacting to things, even things you're doing and what other people are doing,
Hmm.
like, and even from the non-spiritual perspective, like they have senses that are different from yours.
Hmm.
So they do react to things that aren't there, or not aren't there for you to be aware of.
Hmm.
And that's not just spiritual things, it's material things as well. But pay attention because they have their own world, they have their own sensory bubble, they have their own existence. Even though you may, on paper own them, they are still their own individuals. They are still their own entities going through this world with their own things to do.
Hmm.
And hey, if you can't work with one, work with them.
They're
Well,
very good at being in the present.
yeah.
Yes.
And it's interesting because I used to work with a riding program for autistic and cerebral palsy kids with horses. And when I first got there, I didn't share anything. I just let the horse did my thing, whatever. And the one horse, I was just like, you're not doing so well. And he'd shake his head. I'm like, you're not around for long, are you? He'd shake his head. I go, well, at least I got to meet you, right? Well, he ended up having 2 strokes and he was gone. Then the senior horse, I mean, these were all like geriatric horses, right? Like 25 and up. And I'm working with this one horse, and I was like, you're tired, right? I could just feel like he was just done. And then that day he tripped a couple times, and I'm like, he's an old plow, like he's an old like mountain horse, like they don't trip. And I kind of said something to the lead. I go, he's not doing well. Oh, he's fine. I go, okay, he's not doing well. 2 weeks, he was gone, right? And I was like, and then I was like, yeah, I'm done too. Right? It's time to move on. You know.
Yeah.
And that's also learning your inner gifts too, is knowing when the the time is to move on. It's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just like this relationship, this job, this whatever, right? It's time to move on. Wish you well.
That's a very big important lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's huge, and I wish more people would pick up on it because we make it mean something. And we have a whole lot of meaning attached to endings and beginnings that have actually nothing to do with the ending or the beginning. It's just what we make it mean and what other people buy into. And it's a big energy suck. Like it's a big drain to first of all attach that meaning and then to keep feeding it, right? Because it's not naturally there, so you have to keep feeding it energy or it just goes away. And typically we have all these stories that culturally, society wise, you want to keep in place because that's what we do. And so the only thing to do is to keep feeding it energy. And often it's negative energy, especially for endings rather than beginnings. But yeah. And that takes a toll. And you can't be supplying all that energy in that direction and then focusing sufficiently on the things that you need to be paying attention to. You can't have all of it because you only have so much energy to put somewhere at any one point. And if you're draining it into this negative space of meaning that doesn't need to be there, then that a lot of people get stuck in that, and it's almost like a vortex. You know, it's a time vortex of I'm just going to throw everything I have down this hole, this black hole, and there's nothing left to do anything constructive with. We've fed it into social constructs. It's a fascinating thing to see. And Adele, I'm a behavior analyst and I have a science background and I work with kids with autism. So we have a few places where we touch connection there. But also so to me, I'm very analytical about what I see as well as being in touch with the realms that we're talking about. So I see it from different angles and it's very interesting. It feeds the curiosity in my soul.
Huh.
But I see us making meaning out of things all the time. And, it would be so much easier if you just said, well, what else could it be?
Well, okay, so I have a question for you now. Because I was saying to one of the moms at the writing program that her daughter was a gift. I said, I know some days you don't see it that because it's hard, they don't understand, it's challenging, it's exhausting raising these children. But if you can remember that they're a gift and you were granted to be the steward of this gift, not all parents are given this beautiful gift. And it was just like this sigh came through. And she's just like, it's hard. And I said, I know it's hard. I have
But
many.
a big part of why it's hard is because other people make it hard.
Well, I know, but I have a friend who has 4 kids. Her first 2 are highly, highly autistic. And now as adults, like the one is flying around talking to world leaders, and I'm like, when I
Uh-huh,
worked with him, he's petrified of being in the dark. You couldn't leave a room without him just losing it,
uh-huh,
right? And now it's like, oh, don't worry, Michael's with him. If they won't get lost in Germany. They no, he takes air cadets out to the mountains.
uh-huh.
And I'm like, that's hilarious. The kid that was scared of the dark.
Well, it's a stage and it's a different type of processing to what you typically expect to see. But it doesn't mean anything other than it's different. The rest is all what we make it mean. And typically, for kids with autism, the thinking is to have that child fit in. They don't need to fit in. They simply belong because they're a member of the human race, and this person should belong because they belong, and not because you altered them to fit some mythical norm. So with kids with autism, I have found that if you will give them the space to develop and you'll give them the confidence to step forward, unless there is something getting in the way, a significant extra difficulty that's getting in the way, you will find that person has, excuse me, that person has some incredible strengths and superpowers, and that might be an overused term, but it's actually appropriate here because this is where innovation happens. This is where new things happen, new perspectives. We can learn so much from people with autism if we just put down this need to other them and to say, well, you're different, and therefore, whatever you make that mean. This is another one of those stupid social constructs that makes no sense whatsoever, and it's actually squashing somebody who should be embraced for their uniqueness and encouraged to be how they are. Now, as a behavior analyst, absolutely, I will help a child to learn different behaviors so that they are more attuned with the society they're in. But this is so that they can work with what they've got and navigate. It's not so that they fit in or so that they're not who they are. So there's a very important line to tread where that person knows that, no, you are exactly how you're meant to be. This is great. Now, if you show up this way, you'll have less hassle. So if that's what you're here to do, then I can help you get there. And that's typically the approach that I have for kids with autism. And I work with adults with autism as well. And it's like, okay, what do you need help navigating? That's the question. Because society does not make sense. So first of all, forget it. It doesn't make sense. Given that, what do you need to do? What do you want to get to from here? And then we just work out what that path looks like. But
and the thing, like the ones I've seen that are working, functioning, being great contributors to society, they're phenomenal at what they do because they can stay so focused, where all of us have like squirrely brains. They're just like, this is my job, I'm going to be here, and like, I'm good.
Well, it's like thinking of a flower bed, right? Do you want to have this massive flower bed where all the flowers are exactly the same? Or would you like some variety in there? Do you want to get some different species going on, some different colors, some different sizes? Do you want variation? Because the human brain has a lot of variation. And we have taken a particular type of variation, labeled it, and called it a problem. But I dispute this. And I have had parents say to me, can you fix my child? And my response to that is invariably, and sometimes quite bluntly, no, your child isn't broken, but I would love to have a conversation with you. Let's come talk about a few things, because the problem is not the child ever, actually. The problem is how the parent perceives the child and what they do in response to what they think they're looking at. Likewise for teachers, it's what they think they're looking at. If a child has big behaviors, it's because they have a big issue. There's a big problem, there's a big misunderstanding. So let's figure out what that is. And funnily enough, the behavior goes away. It's a means to an end, it's a communication. It's a form of getting your attention, and it's not more than that. But people make it mean things it doesn't mean. It doesn't have to be anything, and it's certainly nothing about the person. It indicates the size of their problem. If that child can't articulate it, they'll behave it. And if you look at adults, they're the same ways. The ones that can't articulate adequately behave.
Like
right?
they're in the
And you see
sandbox.
some really badly, you see some really bad behavior going on right now, right? Because people can't articulate clearly. They can't even think clearly right now. We have, schools don't teach critical thinking anymore. They don't teach the difference between a straw man argument, an emotional argument and a rational, logical one, and why you can't have an argument from those two different perspectives, as you're not having the same conversation, but people don't know this. So we get a lot of miscommunication, and it results in big behavior. It's not just kids with autism. It's all around the place. It's just the kids with autism are more likely to figure it out. So what does that say about the rest of us?
Okay, so let me ask you this as we're talking about 2025 and beyond,
Mm-hmm.
and how I feel they're a gift. They're teaching us so much. Do you think the integration and overstacked school systems are actually hurting more than helping?
Oh, okay. So yes, it's the short answer. Why? Because it's done the wrong way. It's ass about face, quite literally. So I was working with a kiddo in a country school, different state to the one I'm actually living in, because they didn't have people there to work with him. And one of the teachers said she wouldn't let him in her classroom until I stopped him from stimming, flapping his hands and twirling and stuff. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to do that. That's how he self-regulates. When the emotion builds up too much, this is how he offloads. So why would I stop him from doing that? No. And she had this very fixed idea. I said to her, look, if you will let me help you figure out how to manage the class in a way that works for him as well as everybody else, you won't have to single him out. You won't have to have him do anything different. And the systems that I can show you, which are scientific, the systems I can show you will work for every child there. There's no need to integrate him forcibly or to make him feel less than or other than, right? But classrooms, including that one, she said no, including that one, they won't do it. That's the problem, is what we're trying to do is take this kid or these kids and fit them into a classroom that's not designed for human beings, let alone humans who think the way they do. So what we need to do is change what's happening in the classroom, period, so that everybody can integrate. But it's not special for that child, or at least it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And right now they're screwing it up. They are cocking it up in the worst kind of way in every place I've seen, because we're running from something that was around in the Industrial Revolution, and it hasn't improved since then. The teaching standards are frankly dropping exponentially, like they cannot free fall any faster. And it's because of what the teachers are learning. And I have a kid in teaching college, so trust me, I know what I'm talking about. And he's doing brilliantly despite their best efforts. But the system itself hamstrings good teachers and it encourages poor teachers. Meanwhile, all the kids are suffering. And there's only a few that come out okay. They are the exception, not the rule. So integration is a problem because it's being done very, very badly.
And hopefully more teachers will be like your son. And I'm seeing more and more teachers caring. And I also worked with a school for a couple of years that it was a charter school, so they had more leeway. And one day I was just like, "Isn't that the math teacher in the gym?" And she goes, "They would sit in their desk, so we're running our times tables." Right? And they allow, like, if the kids don't want to sit in their desks, lay on the floor. Just do your work. If you want to learn laying on the floor, that's fine. They didn't have to sit in their desk and be all fidgety, and they just laid down on the floor. Right?
Well, human beings are not designed to sit at desks, and children especially so. Most of the learning comes from being in the environment, touching, tasting, feeling, using all your senses and learning about what's there. And what we do is we take kids away from that, whatever of that they've had, slap them in a wildly unhelpful environment, feed them full of chemicals and sugar, and then say, sit down and get good grades. And it's like, you have done everything possible to stymie that and
Yeah.
to make sure it doesn't happen, and then get upset or reach for medication when we have a problem. And it's like, that's not working, but we keep doing it. So, to your earlier question about integration, yeah, it's a problem, but it's a problem that's school wide. And it's not a problem because of the kids in question, it's everybody else. Quite literally, it's
Yeah.
everybody else. If that teacher had just said, sure, okay, show me these classroom management skills and let's see what works. If she'd worked with me on that, he could not only have joined them, but she would never have to single him out at all from some
Or
pretty
any
big
other kid
behaviors.
after that.
Right.
Yeah.
It would just become the norm for how we work with kids. And that is what's necessary in order to do a good job. But boy, it's tough to get people to do that. Now, once upon a time, I've done some different jobs. Once upon a time, I taught Montessori, and that's a fabulous system. Montessori is great because kids don't sit down unless they particularly want to, and they learn what they're interested in, and they learn it well, and they help other kids, and they learn from other kids. And it's a program that was way ahead of Maria Montessori's time, but it works for all children. Like, it doesn't matter what the child's bringing to the table, it'll work, right? Like, you meet them where they're at. And we typically take these little humans and try and make them fit some box, and make them be who they really aren't. They can't possibly be because we haven't met them yet. Like, how can you do that? You're trying to shape this human into what? You're not shaping them into anything helpful because they have their own shape.
Yeah.
So schools are a problem, period.
They've been a problem since I was in school.
Oh, they've been a problem since the Industrial Revolution and probably
Well,
before. But specifically then, because now kids, the whole system is designed to churn out a certain type of response from
Right.
this person, right? Like,
well,
do you
but
do you get asked in school, what kind of difference do you want to make? What do you want to create in the world? How many people would you like to employ? No. The question is always, what job are you going to be good at? Here, take this test and we'll send you off to the careers teacher. It's like, what crap is this? You know,
because they haven't changed anything since we had war.
right. And it didn't work then. But,
No.
people were a bit easier to squash then. We're a different species now. You
Well,
know,
and it's really interesting because Calgary is, from what I've been told, one of the largest homeschooling systems in North America. They just do not do um, school.
yeah. The school system is definitely problematic, to say the least. And teachers aren't given the tools they need in order to do a good job. And in the US, only place I've seen this, the teachers have to buy their own materials to give out to the class,
Which
right?
is
Like,
crazy.
they
Yeah.
have to buy so they don't get paid much. Their pay is miserable. And then they have to spend some of that on giving the kids stuff. And then they get to watch them like shoving crayons up the nose or eating them or whatever. And it's like, I just spent my salary on that, you little snot. And it's like, you know, the whole thing is so messed up. It's not funny. And then we have teachers going to school who are under threat from guns and God knows what.
Mm.
And what's the answer here? Well, we'll arm the teachers. Oh, that's genius. Yes, let's arm the teachers. You can't trust them to choose the books they're going to have their kids read, but you'll give them a gun. Bloody rocket science. Yeah, I have a lot to say on that subject. I could do a
Well,
whole podcast on it, and it would probably be fruity.
but the thing is that I think it's more that the conversation is starting. The conversation needs to get out, and we as the elders in the
Mm.
community have to start saying they're looking after us in the future.
Oh, I've been saying that one. Like these
right?
kids are going to be paying your pension. They're going to decide what home you get put in.
Right.
Can't avoid that. But like, oh, they're going to decide what things you have access to. I don't know if you've seen the movie Idiocracy, but well, that was out in the early 90s. I think you might want to watch that one. It's
Yeah,
kind of
it's in conversation a lot now.
Is it?
I
Yeah.
bought that up. I bought that up like 8 years ago, something like that, saying, "Oh boy, we're here." And here we are, very definitely, more so. Between Idiocracy and The Simpsons, man, we're in trouble.
Oh, I never understood why people listen to The Simpsons.
They get it right, The Simpsons. That is a cartoon, but my God, they predict an awful lot.
Well, and I had no idea that it's still going. It's just on
Yeah,
the major networks. It's like
that surprised me too.
it's one of the longest running shows ever.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't watch TV, so
Well, I know, but I'm
uh,
just like,
disclaimer, I watch American football. I love American football. I don't watch anything else.
so you're busy this weekend.
I am. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's funny. Like,
Speaking of The Simpsons, because I was going to use an example from The Simpsons to talk about when I was saying earlier about being healthy and being who you are. Because there's an episode where Bart doesn't want to go to school, and you see kind of they do an inside of his body,
mhm.
and his immune system is fighting off the illness. And then they stop for a second, and then one of them says, we have orders from upstairs to not fight anymore. And so his immune system just lays down and lets the illness come in.
That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah, like, there is that whole element to The Simpsons. The Simpsons are kind of like, since we're off topic,
I know.
The Simpsons is kind of like the Flintstones. It was made for adults. It wasn't really made for kids to watch because that's why it was like at 8 o'clock. It's like the Flintstones used to be on later before it became like considered a kid show.
I love the Flintstones.
Yeah. But if you look at the references in the Flintstones, it's all adult level stuff. Like
But so's Moana.
most, like I'll say it, most
So's
cartoons are to
Frozen.
keep the adults entertained at the same time as the kids are watching it because the jokes will go over the kids' heads. And like
Yeah.
I went and seen Shrek in the theater, me and a friend of mine, and we were sitting beside kids. It was just like, yeah, okay, you didn't catch that one. Okay, you didn't catch that one.
I imagine they missed a lot of Donkey's references.
Yeah,
But it's a good movie,
yeah.
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah. No, and it's funny because um it's kind of how I've kind of fallen into some of my coaching is doing the reference of, did you see this movie?
Hmm.
Right? Because as we talked about earlier, the parallel lives happening all at the same time
Yeah.
was totally explained in the movie Her. Like, except he used a computer. Right? And I heard a reference the other day of um the reason they had to make Star Wars is because people weren't awake enough for Star Trek. And I go, I love
Hmm.
Star Trek. I didn't like Star Wars.
Hmm. But that's actually, I had heard something about that not too long ago, actually within this week, actually, or no, last week. Someone was mentioning something like that. That's why Star Wars had more success, even though Star Trek had been not too long.
Far, far beyond.
Yeah, yeah, because if you watch Star Trek, you see what Roddenberry was trying to get at.
Hmm.
Even when you like, and then you watch the Next Generation and you see it, and then actually, I think I haven't watched Star Trek in forever. And I haven't seen any of the new stuff
No, I haven't seen it in forever.
because I've gone from that franchise now. I've moved on in my life.
Yeah.
Same thing with Star Wars as well. I've moved on from Star Wars and all of the things.
Hmm.
But yeah, like stuff for entertainment because like I'll use references to popular culture if it tells the story better when I'm trying to tell
Well,
someone something. And
but it's even
it's in the popular conscious, right? So it's just easier to make the reference instead of going out and explaining the whole phenomena. When you see something in popular culture that you can use and bridge the gap faster, that's what I do too.
but it's also like people say, oh, but Star Wars. I go, yeah, no, I was more of a Kung Fu Panda.
Hmm.
And they go, what? And I go, same lessons, just he's cute,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because you want to. I had made this comment about Star Trek, but it's really how do they the umbrella of I think they call it speculative fiction is that it takes you, the person watching it or reading or whatever, it takes you out of it, and then you're just watching the story happen because it's a fairly common phenomenon, right? If we're told this is the main character,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter who the main character is, doesn't matter if it's someone we would normally like, doesn't matter if it's someone we think is awesome. Like the whole piece could be about a villain, and we'll still back the villain emotionally as we're watching the story and hope they succeed because we
Mm-hmm.
become invested in the story. It's the same thing, and I'll use an episode of Ally McBeal because they kind of do that. They do kind of a meta reference, right? There was an overweight lawyer trying to, for the listeners not familiar, Ally McBeal was a lawyer show, but there was this very, very, very overweight lawyer who had a crush on her, and her friend are having the discussion like if this was a movie, we would be rooting for you to go with him,
Mm-hmm.
but because this is real life in context, it's not going to happen because this
Mm-hmm.
is still your life. You still have to do the things you do. You still have to like the things you like. But that's the thing, right? So when you use fiction, people take themselves out of it and they just listen to the story. They don't analyze. They don't. There's no. They don't feel attacked. They don't feel, which is probably a big problem with current entertainment. Is you're literally being attacked by the promotions for it, and the behind the scenes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is that you take yourself out of it, and then you can listen to the story and you can listen to what's happening. So a lot of times I find it's easier to take a popular culture reference and explain something than to actually say, well, in your life, this is how it would be, because people get defensive. Oh, it's my life now. I have to think about it. What's the consequence? What's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
But you take them out of it, and then it's easy for people to learn. It's easy for people to
Well,
actually get into it, or yeah, to learn from the scenario.
and I know Michaela hasn't watched it, but watching This Is Us, I thought was probably one of the most profound shows. Either people got it or they didn't. And
That's the
then
one with the they flash back and forth.
yeah,
Okay.
right? But the podcast of them taking apart every episode's even more fascinating because it was like, that's not where I thought this episode was going because they're putting their inflections on how they're coming into the scene and how they're doing this and how like there's all this ensemble of cast, but they actually never saw each other, right? And yet it was a span of what, 30 years? Well,
Mm,
36 years. Like
yeah,
because the kids were 36 when the show ended,
right.
right? But it took it right from dating all the way through to death in back and forth, back and forth, back
Hmm.
and forth, right? And how many people use that show to help them in their own lives? Like, I don't know how she's doing it with three babies. I can't even get one baby to stop crying. Or like, we're just not communicating as parents. The kids are amok. Like, how do we get back to working as parents and cohesive? And, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
But it's also the sign of the times of what we're moving into as we move into 25, 26, right? Of um the feminine rising. And I'm going to say this, it's not women, it's feminine. We have both.
yeah,
Um because it's the feminine that brings back the nurturance so we can rebuild stronger, better, right?
yeah,
We talk about the autistic children. They're just ready to start solving the problems, right? Because they're born for this time, because their genius is the focus, And I was also listening to somebody who was saying, like, if you remember the book, the Indigo Children,
yes. I've brought this up before. Yes, go ahead.
they are at their prime 35, 45 years old to start really shaking down the old because they're ready to step up as leaders.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Because the indigo children are followed by the crystal children.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it started, well,
They're late 80s, early 90s.
indigo children actually started with the silent generation, apparently. There wasn't tons of them.
Yeah.
Apparently, if like from what I've read about it, at the time, Gen X made up the bulk of the indigo children, and the millennials were going to be a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
So the millennials were the thing to shoot for, and then after them was the crystal children.
Mm-hmm.
So the but if you look at it, right, the silent generation was the ones started being hippies and kind of really looking away. Like they're not the only group that ever did it, and it happens. There's cycles of this happening, but that big change, the whole age of Aquarius, all that kind of stuff, that was the silent generation for the most part. And then it went into the boomers. But like every generation, right? The ones who were about the work that your generations do, they get separated and the rest fall into the regular flow of things.
But
That's
the
why I said like
boomers,
even being Gen X, right? I'm like a lot of Gen Xers are talking a lot of smack about being are talking about all this awesome stuff about being Gen X, but they're not showing it. So
but the boomers were the 60s.
Yeah.
yeah.
Silent generation was the Second World War.
Yeah.
They were definitely not the hippies. They
Well, I
were
was gonna say because my dad was born in 45 or was born in 45, so just before it ended. He was on the tail end of it. And then my mom was in 50.
Yeah, but so
So
I'd still say he's
the
more.
younger silent generation would have been in the hippie period.
I'd say he's still more of a boomer.
Yeah. It is the bulk of that is boomers.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But that's why but from what I was reading, they spoke of it starts with the it really starts with the silent generation and then moves its way through. And then, like I said, the millennials born, and then that's where the bulk of it is. And then the crystal children start showing up.
Well, and it's really interesting because were they the silent generation or were they mandated that they weren't supposed to talk about it? So I've been talking to a lot of World War II vets that
Mm-hmm.
said we weren't allowed to talk about it for 25 years. We
So
all had to sign in like non-disclosures that they
well, because
would
I'll
not
add this,
talk
right?
about anything.
Yeah, because I'll add this, right? I've listened to people tell stories, and one of the stories I hear is that one of the reasons why, very much, I would say, I'm sure there's NDAs, but there's also the how do you tell someone that you spent a whole bunch of time killing people? How do you relate that experience to people? One story I was told was like, where were they? I don't remember where they were stationed, but at night they would basically bury themselves in the ground, like just very light, so they're covered and they're camouflaged, and the Germans would walk past them and basically jump out and slit their throats instead of a firefight. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you tell that? How do you come back home, tell your family, yeah, that's what I did?
Well, yeah, I mean, war is never good, but I also know a friend who was in the war who um, was part of the switchover of the coal and steam into electronics because he'd go into the engine and meditate to get
Oh,
the
yeah.
answers. And probably one of the most kindest people you could ever meet.
Yeah, it's
So,
war is a weird and strange thing
well,
to
and then even like with what's going on in Israel right now, right? Some say just send them the love because they're coming into Technicolor. The rest of the world's already in Technicolor.
hmm.
So send them the love that they're coming into Technicolor and it's all okay. They're just a little bit behind getting the Technicolor TV. Yeah, it's a, and so like that's it like because I'm sure we're wrapping up soon. But I mean, I think as we look at this whole conversation, as we touched on so many different things, what I know for sure, we're in
Okay.
time of change. We're in time of everyone's living in their brilliance and rising, and just be kind.
Yes. You know what, Adele? That is a good place to end it, on to being kind with people.
Yeah.
Because it is a very, very much something that is needed right now.
Yeah.
Big
We've
time.
said, yeah,
With kindness comes peace. With kindness comes the peace which will eventually move you into the freedom of what this next 20 years is.
hmm,
The freedom to choose, to be, to align with the authentic self of who we all are in our own right.
yes, that is our constantly repeated mantra: be yourself, be who you are. And you know what? I think yes, this is a good place to end the conversation, bro. But this was awesome conversation. A lot of things got in, a lot of things moved in. We touched on stuff, man, some good stuff. Remember, people, pay attention to your animals.
Absolutely.
And for people listening, right, listen to this one a few times. I'm sure there's nuggets in here that you might not have heard the first time through. But you know what? So on that note, I'm Daniel Zubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
I'm Adele Bernard.
Until next time.